Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. Today, we've brought back Ed Bradley, who's a staff member both at Rebuilt and the Church of Nativity, to help us deep dive into the fourth strategic anchor, and that is leadership. I'm so excited for you to get to learn from Ed, and just make sure to stay tuned at the end where you can find out where you can get a free resource to help evaluate leadership at your parish, and then turn that around and turn that into an action plan for having a great leadership strategy in your own parish. Thanks for tuning in. Well, Ed, welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us again to deep dive into our next anchor.
Melissa, great to be with you as always, and fun to be in a little bit of a new venue here in the cafe area of Church of the Nativity. It's pretty attractive place behind me, so I like this new little look.
I love it. It's such a great location. I love how bright it is. Well, yep. And as we've done with the other strategic anchors, I was hoping you could kick us off with just a little recap and reminder of what the 4 traits of successful parishes are.
Right. Today we're here to talk about leadership, but let's remind ourselves of those traits, right? And as I've described it, we've talked about kind of starting with a burden, right, on our hearts. Who isn't coming? So we want to be intentional about seeking the lost and reaching out. So we want to grow wider as a community and really, really welcome outsiders, if you will. And then when they come, they need to have an awesome weekend experience. So we want to have an excellent weekend mass experience driven by homilies that speak into people's lives, energy created by ministers, a vibrancy, a vibe that people want to be a part of, and music that's stirring and worshipful. So folks come, they have an awesome, and that experience, that calls us deeper in our faith. So we grow deeper in our faith at Mass, certainly, but then there are also practices that we can be taking on, a discipleship path that will help us grow deeper in our discipleship. So we encourage newcomers onto that path, but we also challenge our insiders to be growing deeper in their faith by conducting themselves with these practices of a discipleship path. And then everything comes together, and it's today's topic, with leadership. And our value added in the leadership anchor really is more than just, because everybody says everything rises and falls on leadership, and that's true, but particularly in a church or a parish setting, you need to create a community of leaders, layers of leadership, which we're going to talk about today. So those are the 4 anchors: grow wider, have an awesome mass experience, grow deeper in our faith, and create a leadership community.
Well, thank you, Ed, for that recap. I have to start off by saying leadership is my favorite anchor to talk about because our church made massive strides once we focused on leadership. And I know that each anchor has its own traits that it brings to Parish Renewal. But wow, can leadership just do something incredible to your parish? So I'm excited that we're going to talk about that today.
Great testimony for that. I appreciate you sharing that. And I do think it is a place where, a pastor and their key leaders can sort of come together and try to really be intentional about, leading the parish. And we're going to get into that today, but that's a great testimony.
Well, as we begin, let's talk about why leadership is such an important trait to a successful parish.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that. You've noticed that we've started with the why each time that this is an anchor. We're going to get into, our classic flywheels and the executing elements of this anchor. But, we want to have an underpinning. We want to remind ourselves the why this is important. And it's more than just sort of, to announce the reasons, if you will, but it's also to give us the language behind it, because we want to build a culture for these anchors in our community. So let's give ourselves sort of ammunition to be able to speak about them. So the why gives us some of that. And there's a scriptural underpinning to them as well. And, we say everything rises and falls on leadership. So why is leadership an anchor? That is sort of biblical. If you look into great examples of leadership. It's very true biblically, with certainly, the Moseses of the world and the Davids of the world. These were great leaders. And they were leaders because they were men of faith and they were seeking God's heart. They weren't necessarily perfect. These were all flawed, had their certain elements of flawness, if you will. But leadership matters. It matters biblically, both to the good and also to the bad. You see the examples of Ahab and some others where poor leadership led things astray. We talk about so everything rising and falling on leadership. That's a big one. The layers of leadership. Why is that important? And we're going to talk about layers when we get into the anchors as well. But there's a biblical element of that. We see that in Exodus 18. Moses' father-in-law Jethro. Moses is trying to do everything. And Jethro said, dude, you're doing it wrong. And he talked about creating sort of layers of leadership. And that gets into the 50s and hundreds and, and tens, and don't need to get into that detail. The important part is senior leadership, your staff, they can't be doing it all. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But the essence of the biblical element of that is it is structural. I mean, it is biblical in Exodus 18 to put in place layers of leadership. So those are big, important whys. I think that there are further whys when you think about tapping into the wisdom in the parish. Why create these layers of leaders, this community of leadership? Why encourage your staff to create layers of leadership on the part of those who will come to bear as being part of the members of your layers, your members in your leadership community? You're going to be accessing their wisdom, and that's biblical from a Proverbs. Plans led by leaders do well. Plans without proper counsel go astray. And so, there's reasons for that. And also, we talk about why create this from the standpoint of the minister volunteer, both to access their wisdom, but also to give them the opportunity to serve is a really powerful thing. We talk about, as we were talking about the other anchors, and growing as a disciple and serving. Well, if you create this leadership community, you're providing opportunities to serve, which will enable your parishioners to grow as disciples. So there is, ample whys behind this anchor. And I hope those, sort of enumerated a few of them.
For sure. And I love how you tied it into that grow deeper anchor too, where we have to provide those opportunities to serve. And our parishes, we have so many incredible people in our pews that we can tap in to their gifts and their talents. And by opening up some of these leadership positions to them, that's not just giving us great leaders, but it's also allowing them to find a way to serve within their talents and giftings.
Absolutely. So do you want to get into the flywheel?
I would love that. So we talk about a flywheel. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, you can see this is what our flywheel looks like. We will also have this in the show notes, so that way you can take a pic of it. But Ed, can you walk us through each component of the leadership flywheel?
Yeah, we'll sort of lay it out at first, and then we'll go case by case. The interesting thing here is, when you look at this and hear this flywheel, you're kind of like, okay, yeah, it's a little obvious, I want to say, or maybe simple, but certainly not easy, right? So simple, but not easy. And I think that's probably a good thing. But leadership, the anchor, you need cohesive leadership teams at all levels to fulfill your mission. And it begins with a senior team that delegates and empowers staff, who then build ministry team of empowered volunteers. Pretty straightforward sort of, but it starts at the top of each of the flywheels. You remember, most of them, all of them, I think, have sort of at the top kind of a macro element, and then sort of the blocking and tackling, executing elements around it. And this starts with, to lead by mission, vision, values, and the strategic anchors at the top. And then, build and develop a senior leadership team. Lead yourself, and that's an interesting one. Equip and empower your staff. Identify and grow strong volunteer leaders. And then what we measure is what we get most of the time. So determine the metrics and measurements for progress. Those are the 6 executing elements. And as I said, they sort of read, you flow through them kind of straightforwardly. At the same time, there's a lot of nuance and a lot of, it's not necessarily as simple as it might sound.
Well, I think you're right, Ed. It looks simple, but it's definitely not easy when it comes to the execution. And something that I want to share, I shared how leadership is my favorite, but I have to say we had a lot of handholding when it came to leadership and a lot of guidance because we were in coaching and we had the leadership course where we learned exactly how to implement each of these elements. And that was critical to us making massive strides. So I do want to preface it with that. We had a lot of help when it came to this leadership anchor.
And it is nice to have a coach alongside to, sort of help guide or at least provide some measure of encouragement and affirmation, but also some accountability here and there as well.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
so it does start at it does start at the top, and even I would say the first 2 are kind of connected, if you will, because you want to lead by mission, vision, value, and the strategic anchors. And then you want to build a senior leadership team that's going to kind of create that culture. So in some ways, I'm going to talk about them a little bit separately, but at the same time, they're pretty connected too, I think. But as an organization, we want to have clarity of mission. Jesus gave us the Great Commandment, Great Commission. We've talked about in our conversations, love God, love others, make disciples, the combination of the Great Commandment, Great Commission, that clarity of sort of mission of the organization. You want to create that culture. People need to know your mission. You need to communicate it. That's important. And you can take it deeper. You can take it deeper into values. What are the things that you value as an organization? There are a lot of different ones you can pick from, but is excellence and a value of the organization? Is simplicity a value? Is adaptability a value? What are the things that sort of matter to you most? And enumerate them, define them, and then communicate them. And those are the things that will allow you to kind of build the culture of the parish. And you're really striving for a shared culture with regard to the mission, vision, and values of the parish. The other thing, when you think about this anchor from a kind of a big picture standpoint, you can also drip in more sort of secular business thinking. Think of the parish as a little bit of as a small business, and you should know your business. Yes, we're in the discipleship business, but you can have effective strategies. We've been talking about the strategic anchors, and those things matter. You can have things like enumerating a clear discipleship path. I've said enumerate now 3 or 4 times. I'm not sure why today, but it's just my word for the day, I guess. Have a clear discipleship path that matters, and have clarity. Your senior team and your staff, organizational health should be a goal, to be able to both like each other, but also to reach consensus, but also to have conversation and challenge each other in a healthy way. All of those things matter. We should all take on, the attitude of learning our craft, whether in our department areas, going deeper in a lifetime of learning. That's a shared value. That's a shared culture. So organizational dynamics also can be part of this big picture. So, there can be a lot there at the macro level But at the end of the day, it's a culture, building a culture and a value system that's driving the work of the parish.
And I got to tell you, Ed, when all of that is put in place, and it takes a lot to put it in place, but when all of that is put in place and the wheels start turning, something just clicks. And this is when massive change can really happen and things get moving in the parish. So all of that takes so much time and effort to set up, but wow, is it worth it?
It really is, because as we've alluded to sort of in other places, when you provide leadership to folks and, people respond to that in a powerful way. So,
yes.
It matters. It matters a lot. And so the next one is, and they're connected really. A lot of this then, particularly at the big picture of communicating mission and vision and values, it does fall to the pastor, but more importantly, and this is an important thing for pastors to, really lean into, is the idea of surrounding themselves with a senior team. And so build and develop your leadership team. And we're not now talking about just, we have a parish council in place. A parish council's meeting every couple of months, and the pastor bounces ideas off. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a week-to-week team, the small business C-suite leadership team who is managing the operations of the business in a proactive way. It's not just putting out this week's fires, or it's not just going week to week. It's trying to look ahead and cast vision and lead, sort of proactively. And so that, and again, it's kind of a weekly team, and who should be on that? It should be key staff, but key staff who particularly provide to the pastor the advice that he needs to run the parish. But it's also a group leading the parish, and a good, healthy parish pastor leader will empower this team, to have healthy interactions, healthy conversations, to build consensus, and to lead as a group. And there's a lot of value in that. I won't get into all the nuances of it, but you want to have that senior team that has healthy interactions, that create and communicate, clarity. And that's how the entire parish organization is going to be aligned. It starts there.
Yes. And it
starts there, and then it leads the staff, and then the staff leads the volunteer, and that's when you get into the layers of leaders. But before we do that, let's talk about that next item, which is leading, unless you have a question for me.
I do, because I want to affirm for our parishes out there who have a very tiny staff or a small staff. And I would love for us to share with them how they can also have this strategic leadership team, even if they maybe only have 1 or 2 paid staff members. How can they find people who can fulfill some of these important roles to help support the pastor, even if they have such a tiny staff?
Well, this is where, looking into your community for folks who you've gotten to know and you trust and you respect, who also are engaged in the parish and are clearly demonstrating an acceptance of, or an alignment, if you will, with the mission and vision of the parish. And that, might be, this is where you might look into the parish council, or you might look into the finance council for talented people who you could draw upon. You might look to key people who are engaging and serving in the parish, but you aren't looking just for the busy bees and the folks who are kind of, that are serving for the right reasons, or serving for, for, at the end of the day, they exist. The people who the pastor the advice they can value. And so if they are those folks who maybe have jobs or other things, you can look to have these meetings, kind of later in the day or even early evening, and you can accommodate people's schedules. And if invited, and for the opportunity to come around the pastor and to, join a team in a powerful way, folks will respond to that invitation and do what they can to be a part of it, both, as an honor to serve, but also they'll recognize it'll also help them grow in their faith, to be engaged in that powerful way in the community. So even the smaller parishes, if there's one or two staff to draw upon, you can surround them with a few key leaders. They're out there.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you bet. So, before we then get into the layers of leadership, I think, it's worth talking about the idea of leading ourselves. That a healthy leader needs to be healthy, or a strong leader needs to be healthy. If your life's kind of a train wreck, you're not going to be a great leader, right?
For sure.
That says it too strongly, obviously. But, someone once wrote, 50% of leadership is self-leadership. I don't know where that percentage comes from, but we'll use it anyway. But are you managing your time? Are you managing your priorities? Are you, making sure you're taking care of yourself so you have the energy? So priorities, time management, self-care,
yes.
all of those things really matter so that you can bring your best to the work. And so leaders need to lead themselves first. And those are the biggies, but also, are we growing spiritually? Are we reading things on the side? Are we, what are we doing in terms of, growing ourselves, growing our faith? And, you see in Scripture, hearing about Jesus led with authority, and a lot of that comes from spiritual growth, him starting every day well and being aligned to his Father, and then, sort of being well grounded in Scripture and all those things, allowed him to lead with authority. So, and that, and that's the spiritual side, but then also thinking along the business lines, there are business books to read. There are, pastoral development work to do. There's ministry treaties to, be well versed in. So be a lifetime learner with regard to the church work. All of those things matter with regard to leading ourselves first, so that we'll be the best leaders of our community that we can be.
Definitely. Now, you've done such a great job of sharing how we can lead ourselves. Now, how can our parish leaders go out there and equip the rest of the parish staff, the parish teams, some of those volunteers? What does that look like? All
right. So now we're sort of moving now into the layers of leadership world, right? So, yes. And that starts with a senior team equipping and empowering staff. So this, very often in church world, we'll have staff workers, parish workers who feel like they need to kind of do everything. And at the end of the day, that's very, very limiting. They have finite, personal hours in the day, finite energy, all of those things. So, and they can't get it all done. And it also doesn't allow you to scale, doesn't allow you to grow, and et cetera, et cetera. So this idea does need to be staff driven. So staff has to, first of all, be made clear that it's not only sort of like, it's not okay, it's expected that you will not do the work, but become a leader of leaders. Yes. Is how staff should view themselves, right? And yes, you're going to be doing work along the way. Obviously, you're going to be, leading and guiding and organizing and doing a lot of the work. But you also need to bring a team around you for the reasons we talked about in the why, in terms of, accessing wisdom in the parish, and also providing opportunities for people to serve so they will grow in discipleship. Remember, we're in the discipleship business all the time. And so we need to provide our ministers, our congregation with the opportunity to serve. So staff should view themselves that way for that reason, but also so they can leverage themselves and so that they can do more and so that they have greater capacity and that we can scale our ministries. And so staff needs to, if we're going to create this culture, it begins with staff embracing it, being not only told, accepting that they can and should, but embracing the idea that they should delegate and that they should create teams under themselves to allow them to expand and grow their ministries. So a successful staff person is surrounded by volunteer leaders and teams of leaders under those volunteers. So we have that. So that's it, really. You know, it's an embracing of this idea on the part of staff that allows us to, you know, access the wisdom and the manpower in the parish.
It's so good because one person can't do it all. You can't have one or even two or handful of staff members handle everything. But when you have those volunteers to help do even the little things, it takes such a burden off of the staff members. And then the staff members are able then to truly live within their purpose and lead these teams. They can accomplish so much more together. So I agree with you. This is huge.
Yeah, it really is. And you know, and you said even the little things, actually the little things might be the most important things to delegate so that the staff person's really thinking about the big things.
Yeah.
And there are people in the parish who are going to want the opportunity to serve and grow as a disciple, and they may only have time for the little things. And so that's great. That's a win-win, right? So, yeah, that's excellent.
Amazing. Well, now, what strategies? So you talk about how we need these volunteers to help with things. So what strategies can we use to identify, to find some of these volunteers and key volunteer leaders out there?
Okay, so here we go. Right. This is like of this in this one, you know, this is we can't get people volunteer. Oh, we don't have enough. We don't, you know. So here we go. This is where we are. Identify and grow. Well, I mean, you know, and I'm not going to say it's like, oh, magic bullet. There you go. You're done. You know, this is again, simple idea, not necessarily easy to execute.
Right.
Identify and grow strong volunteer leaders. Okay, so here's the big one. All right, so let's acknowledge first that in hospitality, you know, if we want to have great hospitality, we need some greeters, and we might have cafe ministers, or, you know, for after mass fellowship, we need people for that, right? Kids programs. Who's going to run children's liturgy of the word? Do we have religious ed? Or do we have a nursery during mass? Do we have a middle school ministry, high school ministry? Are we trying to create some small groups and then so in those events? So we need some people to lead those, you know, okay. Operations, facilities, people's, you know, making sure the place is clean on the weekend. There are people, you know, who are doing those things. We want to have an online mass, you know, are people on cameras? Are people, you know, doing sound and tech? And, you know, what's involved in creating a great online mass experience? We need people for that. A small group ministry, we need small group leaders. In stewardship, we might need development professionals to help, like, you know, teach us how to raise money, you know, although you don't need that because I teach a finance and stewardship course in Rebuild, and you know, just sign up for that. I'm having a little
It's so
fun.
good.
So
it's so good.
All right. So I just, you know, enumerated a bunch of people that we need for our layers of leadership. Okay. So, in the same, you know, and so we've said, all right, in the same way, senior team empower staff, we need staff to find folks and then empower them. All right. Where do we find them? The first thing I'd like to say or talk about is the power of the personal invitation.
Yes.
All right. So what's going to drive a personal invitation? Well, we have to have, you know, sort of relationships. So when we talk to staff, when do our people come to mass? Well, they come on Sundays. So is your staff there on the weekend? Are they in your narthex or your concourse or what you call your atrium, wherever? Are they working the room, if you will, meeting people before and after Mass, building relationships. And so, and when the time is right, invite them into their ministry. Boy, you are an outgoing, but you'd be a great greeter. Boy, you told me you work in you have a little technology bent. Have you talked to our online? Boy, they need you, or you. And again, I just used the word they need. That was wrong. Okay. I want to be clear. The invitation is, you have these skills.
Yes.
You will grow when you share them. You have the opportunity to serve and grow as a disciple accordingly. The invitation is them focused, is their skills, their growth as a disciple. It's never from a place of need. It's never, we don't have enough people serving. And, it's always about them, and it's all about the opportunity. It's all about discipleship. So It's relationships, it's a personal invitation, and it's an opportunity to grow as a disciple. And our job as church leaders is to make that opportunity available to people. Okay?
And that's such a good point, Ed. You're connecting the dots for them too. You're showing them first of all, what's in it for them, but then also how by sharing their gifts, they're then participating in discipleship. They're becoming disciples by doing something that's already simple for them because it's within their gifting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, utilize the wisdom and the gifts in the congregation and make the personal invitation. Now, the next part of this is identify and grow strong volunteer leaders. The way you grow them is to empower them. So you have to be comfortable delegating, and you have to be comfortable giving folks some reins and a little bit of room to grow. And if you do that well, that will beget further volunteers. Those volunteer leaders will share their experience with their circle, and they'll make clear to people how they're growing and how they're enjoying it and how they're loving it. And this is awesome. And you got to be a part of this. And so, they asked two friends and so on, and so on, all those things. Right. And so, that's important. That culture will grow if you empower folks and give them that opportunity to grow. And then you can also look for ways to bring your teams together, have leadership nights, and encourage and train, equip people to grow as leaders. So there's it's that whole continuum of how to both invite and then empower and then nurture, encourage, and grow them as leaders.
Definitely. And it's incredible what happens when you provide people with opportunities to serve when your parish hasn't had them before. I have to share just a quick anecdote with you, Ed, because one of our big needs in our parish when we first started rebuilding was maintenance. Everything was just filthy. We had cleanup days, and I'm not kidding you. The first cleanup day, we had over 40 people show up to clean the church. That's not glamorous. That's not fun. Who wants to do that? But we had professionals. We had school alums showing up. The next one we did, it was to clean the church and the rector. We had over 80 people show up to clean. From that group of 80 people, some of our most key volunteer leaders and volunteers that serve week in and week out in all different capacities, including in our offices, in our school, in the church on the weekends, came just from providing an opportunity to serve. And you might think that, wow, getting people is really hard. You just start with one. Just starting with one opportunity that anybody can do. Wow, does it open the doors for those volunteers and they come running.
And again, frame it as an opportunity to serve, not as a we need people to, Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. No, that's great. And then the last item of the flywheel is really more management 101. What gets measured gets gets focused on, gets completed, gets done. Where you're setting goals, your attention, those things will get your attention. Those things will get your initiative. And so, we're obviously, we want to be tracking things, and you hear that and you think, well, yeah, we're counting our attendance, in every February. No, you should be doing that all the time, certainly. And, oh, well, we are always counting our money. We count the offertory. Well, sure. But, there's nuance to that. Are you tracking really, electronic giving as a percentage of offertory? How are you tracking things that are making you better and making you smarter? And are you looking at the numbers at your masses? Are there ones that maybe you should eliminate, and you might be better if you're doing fewer masses? And do you need them all? But I'm not encouraging that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, are you tracking the data so that you can evaluate it? Are you tracking your offertory, but are you thinking about it in sort of nuanced ways? Those are the big ones, right? But then are you also, are you aware of how many ministers are serving on a weekend? And you want to see if that number is growing, and then you want to be sharing that. You want to be sharing the wins and sharing growth. People involved in small groups, And those things, you start to get the idea of how engaged are people in your parish. So, when we talk about, your goal is parishioner engagement. Well, what are the items that reflect engagement in the parish? Serving in ministry, are they giving it, or have they joined a small group? So those are, if you have a daily devotional, have they signed up for it? Partaking in the sacraments, et cetera. So, what gets measured gets done. Track the key things or the important things that give you a sense of parishioner engagement in your parish, and that will help you assess sort of the health of the parish by having a good, strong idea about what is the level of parishioner engagement in the parish.
And that's such a great point, Ed, that we're looking for parishioner engagement, not just attendance, not just giving, but what are we doing to serve our parishioners? And that's key. And I'm excited for us. We actually, later on, we're bringing in Brandon Hollern to come and share all about measurements and metrics. And so we're going to get to dive into that. So you're not going to want to miss that episode coming up with Brandon, where, can you think of a better person to
Perfect
share
segue.
all of that?
He's all about parishioner engagement, and also he's both a director of finance, but he's also the director of technology. And we have this very attractive dashboard of all, and he'll speak a little bit about our back office system, which enables us to do some of that tracking. But yeah, he's a big guru on parishioner engagement. So that'll be a wonderful conversation for you. A great promo for that, Melissa.
Well, Ed, you've walked us through all of these components in the flywheel, and we've talked already about how we support parishes by coaching. And I would love to hear what parishes out there, or maybe parish, can you think of that have just done a great job at taking these pieces of the flywheel and put them together and are just doing an excellent job with leadership right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. That you're going to get different sort of levels of success, if you will, as you start here. There's going to be, Melissa early on talked about, so you can kind of start with a senior team, and then maybe you have a smaller staff, and maybe they've been around a while and they're a little reticent to give up some of their territory, but that'll take some time. And so, building the layers beyond that. But senior team, is a great place to start. And what comes to mind for me, St. Norbert's in Paoli, Pennsylvania, who I coach, has been very intentional at the senior team level. And, they have a very structured approach, meeting weekly, doing evaluations of the various areas of ministry, their strategic anchors. They have kind of red, yellow, or green, yellow, red kind of analysis about how they're doing. And they do that well. And for them, it has translated into the staff adopting it a little bit, and certainly, and then some of the staff sort of better at it than others. But they're growing into it, and it is starting at the top, and then empowering folks. And they've also had to actually go through some transition in terms of who's comprised on that team, because some folks left the parish or had some personal circumstances that made their opportunity to serve no longer possible. But they are so dedicated to that idea. The pastor has found new folks, and again, they're out there, and he's made the invitation, and he's been able to fill his team comfortably with people who he really values. And then another parish that's kind of really new at it, and it's Church of the Holy Spirit in New Jersey, and I don't need to get too detailed, but they're newer to us, and they've really embraced the senior team, but have like a lot of people on it, and because he's really trying to get consensus on what he's trying to begin with, and I think that's a good idea in terms of sort of bringing in angels and advocates and drawing upon the wisdom of the parish. I might argue that his team might be a little bigger than it might best be long term. But that said, it's serving its purpose now for where he is in sort of the cultural development cycle, with regard to his parish. So there are different ways to come about it. I mean, I like to think sort of 5 to 7 is the sort of optimal team, not necessarily 12 to 14, but and that's the respective places. But anyway, the different ways to come at it, and certainly at different points in your journey. But there's a couple of success stories there.
I love hearing that. And one thing I noticed is that both of them, where their strength came from, was from that strategic leadership team. And you talked about it multiple times today, Ed, that it starts with that strategic team. And we've got some resources out there for people. So if they're interested in how they can work on leadership in their parish, are there any resources that you want to share? And then I'll share what our free resource is for today.
Well, we always talk about, rebuildparish.com and the work of Rebuild. And in terms of, and you alluded to this right at the outset, having someone alongside. So when we talk about leadership, there is coaching available to an entire leadership team at the broad parish level. But what we also do is individual leadership coaching. So, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I personally might, benefit from a little bit of leadership coaching, Rebuild offers that one-on-one as well. And so, look at rebuildparish.com, look into the coaching area of that, and both there's parish, but also personal leadership coaching that might be a great place actually to start down that coaching path. You don't need to embrace the full parish level. You could start with just some individual coaching.
That's such a great point, Ed. And it's been a lot of fun, too, watching the success of the parishes. Of course, it's always great to see the parishes that are in parish coaching, but also seeing how some of these leaders are just truly developing some incredible skills with this leadership coaching. That has been just such a cool journey to watch.
And you go down that path as a person, you might then kind of start to be a leader on the inside of your parish, too. You're going to, kind of learn some techniques maybe to become a mentor of others, a leader of others inside your own organization, carry that leadership training to others. It can be powerful.
Definitely. Well, I always have to share our free resource that we've got for you, and today's will not disappoint. This is a leadership evaluation. And with this leadership evaluation, your team will be able to see how you're doing when it comes to leadership. You'll be able to rank yourself, talk about your notes, and then you'll have a meeting And we've got some ideas for you for some low-hanging fruit so that you can get started on an action plan for leadership in your parish. And that is a free resource that can be found at rebuiltparish.com/leadership evaluation. I'll also have it in the show notes for you, so you can download that and take that evaluation with your team. Well, Ed, thank you so much for joining. Anything else you want to share with us before we sign off for the day?
No, I think that this is maybe our last one for a little while, Melissa, because we've done all four now. So I've really enjoyed being able to take that deep dive into the strategic anchors with you and with your audience, and just grateful for the opportunity. And blessings to everyone out there. It's been terrific being with you.
Well, thank you, Ed. This has been so much fun. I love that you have kicked off every one of these deep dives for us for each of the strategic anchors. And we're going to have to bring you back at least in a couple of months, because I just really enjoy getting to talk with you. And I know that our community out there gets to learn so much from you every time you're here. So thank you.
Oh, you're very kind, and I'm available and happy to come back anytime. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, thank you to our community and listeners. We'll chat with you soon.